A few months ago, I was invited by 10 Chambers to visit their office in Sweden. I was convinced to go when they said Paige could come, and that we'd be staying in a hotel called The Hobo, which is funny. And so I found myself and Paige in Stockholm, Sweden, standing in front of the 10 Chambers office, which looks like a government building, by the way. It's just hilarious that they're making video games in there. They even gave me fun office slippers to wear. If you don't know, 10 Chambers made GTFO, the game that's intrigued me for years because 99% of its players can never beat all of it, but they just give zero shits because they are stubbornly stuck to their vision of the game. Something that earned my respect. They had invited a bunch of Payday content creators to try the pre-alpha to their next game, Den of Wolves. I only got invited because they found it hilarious that I spent 6 months on their R8 E2 level, and this was a thank you? Or maybe an apology? Something like that. Should be noted that I'm honestly not that interested in heist games. I'm interested in 10 Chambers themselves. These are the dudes that can be trusted with video game making. Anyway, first I had to learn what Payday was, so here's an abridged history that I learned. Something something, Ulf Anderson and his best buddies create Payday 1 and 2, and it's super great and beloved, but then gets bought by a forgettable company name, and Ulf plus gang leave during Payday 2's life cycle to do their own thing, forming 10 Chambers and releasing their pent-up corporate anger in the form of torturing their players with GTFO. Basically, 7 people got GTFO up and running, which is why they had to do the deleting old rundowns system, so that they could add features without the previous rundowns imploding. Now the company is over 100 people, so hopefully that means back support and no more RIP missions. Anyways, now 10 Chambers is returning to their roots with a heist game. I had kind of heard about Payday flopping and watched a single Clint Stevens video on it, but that's it. Turns out Payday enjoyers these days are like a massive vat of anger and broken promises and downgraded everything and tears. So know that my gameplay impressions are not relative to Payday 2, I'm just a guy that likes GTFO, and I like the general uncompromising vision that 10 Chambers has. During my visit, I got to try Den of Wolves so far and also interview Ulf Anderson, who suggested that playing a single level for 6 months was a fetish.
That's not like what most people enjoy.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
It's less of a gaming hobby and more like a fetish.
I was actually speechless. Yeah. You made this game, Ulf. Did you want me to beat it or not? As for the game, they had 2 missions ready that I played numerous times. A prep mission and a heist mission. Their vision is that you'll play a half dozen smaller missions before a main heist, then that will impact how you pull it off, with what tools, what enemies you'll have, and what's going on where you're heisting. The prep mission we had was simple, with the goal being to sneak as long as you can, then drill open a vault and get some drone weapon, defend the drill and extract the weapon plus cash. Then, come the main heist, we had to use some imagination, obviously because we didn't do the prep jobs to set it up, but what we theoretically did was get this one criminal organization to shit on like a third of the building and work with us, so we could just waltz through a very nice looking scene of destruction. There was a dude getting tortured because of something we'd done, and we had 2 vault drills with us. Also, a news anchor was going like, "Local vault is getting shit on as we speak. They're even watching us now. Say hi, guys." And then for standard gear, everyone has 2 guns and a tool and a melee weapon. Very GTFO-like, except they swapped the melee weapon from slot 1 to slot 3, giving the impression that they'll let us shoot more than they do in GTFO. There were like a dozen vaults between 2 floors, and only 3 keys were needed to open the main ball vault. Others had bags we could loot for optional max completion, but we never got them all. It was genuinely hard. Lots of bad guys with guns that poured in almost constantly. It's funny, even in their Game Awards trailer, you can see moments of Callie down, Victor down, and Vlad down. Triple skill issue. After you get the keys and blow up the window, you can open the main vault, and Mr. Big Guy Shooty Man comes out. He's like a juggernaut, but he just kind of dies. Now this is the point with the greatest potential. Well, actually, I think the greatest potential is the prep mission influence, but we didn't really experience that. Inside the ball vault is a lore man in a tube. In
Midway City.
They use human brains as storage because AI hacks can't penetrate them. And after some very GTFO bioscans, we had 3 dives, like Inception things, into this dude's eco hard drive. Each dive is a timed brain space parkour Dishonored power tutorial that pulls you out of the shootout. Fail it and you have to hold out longer to try again. Succeed to get the information for whoever is paying you. These dives were explained as a big selling point because there's no rules in brain space and they can do whatever they want. You'll be shooting the bad guys and then suddenly, collect the 8 pages. Also in the heist at this point, some Halo-looking dudes show up and make holes in the wall, body the other guys you're fighting, and they've got juggernauts, so you just kind of get put on a timer to transport as much money as you're willing to, and then escape. As for my thoughts on it, I liked it, and would only like it more when it's fully made. Though, trust my opinion with a grain of salt, because lest we forget about that E2 fetish. The menu map was huge with lots of grayed out sections of the city, so in theory, there's a ton of content planned that could offer dynamic, diverse gameplay while still being hard. I'll at least be giving it a chance when it comes out one day, so we'll both see then. As for my Ulf interview, he's a funny old man with funny answers to my questions.
There's a lot of similarities. So I think coming from GTA 4, you're gonna have a blast playing Den of Wolves. The risk is probably that you're too good, you know? Because that tends to happen with GTA 4 players. It's like, if they stick with it, then they become monsters.
True. Yeah, and then people complain that Rundown 3 was too easy.
Yeah.
I've seen a fair amount of that. Definitely, I think people coming from GTFO's biggest question is going to be about difficulty, because that's the biggest identity of GTFO.
Yeah, I think that's part of the identity of 10 Chambers also.
Yeah.
But we've also grown as a company. There's a lot of people in it now in comparison to them. And I dare say like most of the people working here has probably not completed much of GTFO because the difficulty level is so high. Right? I mean, just looking at the statistics, we're gonna publish that someday, I think, if we haven't. The actual, like, how it looks, like the drop-off rates
I learned about the Rundown 2 drop-off rates. I actually talked about that in a video once. It was like 800,000 to like 800.
Percentage-wise, it's a fun.
Yeah.
But it's, the game at least is very honest with that.
Yeah.
So we're not saying like, oh, it's for everyone.
Yeah.
And then you run into a difficulty war.
Yeah.
It's saying, don't buy this game because you suck. And, and that's it. But difficulty-wise, I think it's always a tricky thing for us because we have this super hardcore community. And then if you compare it to like a hardcore, people are gonna hate me for saying this, but like if you take like a hardcore Payday player and then a hardcore GTFO player, and then you say, oh, but these are the hard maps. That's two different things, completely different things. I'm not shaming anybody. I'm saying it's just very. You played one map for half a year.
Yes.
Right. So just to put that into perspective.
That is good perspective.
That's not like what most people enjoy.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
It's less of a gaming hobby and more like a fetish. You know.
Yeah, almost like a job.
Yeah. So I would say like the hope is to be able to create something that can scale to this sort of insanity, you know, but at the same time sort of cater over here. Although I think a lot of games are way too easy, especially in consideration like for a cooperative game. I think a good cooperative game is really hard. If I think about the most enjoyable things ever in cooperative, it was hard as fuck and we died a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that thing, just because it's cooperative, I'm not giving up. I'm like, dude, we gotta do this. Just failing together is such a magical thing. If we're breezing through everything, then it's almost like we're clicking, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's that opposition of saying like, oh, we have to beat this game. You know, I think that's where the magic is. You know, I think we're gonna end up in the worst case, which is basically GTFO players thinking it's too easy, and like Payday players thinking it's too hard.
Yes,
you know,
of course,
that's probably where we're gonna end up.
Well,
and then we'll have
that'll
to,
be nice.
and then we'll try to slide it somewhat.
Yeah.
You know?
Would you ever do like difficulty options?
So options are limiting because they indicate a linear difficulty thing, and we're looking more at like up and down, harder, easier of course, but also like sideways. So you'd go like, we're gonna play this storyline, which is sort of a campaign for us, but with this tweak on it, So that makes it easier in a way, but we're also missing out on some stuff here.
Right.
Or we're adding some other thing that makes it more difficult in some situations.
Yeah.
So you're so it's sort of a trade-off kind of thing. Theoretically now, let's say you have some sort of drop system, right? You're looking at less good shit, right? Because what we really want to do is we want to segue you into that more difficult experience, because that's where it's at. That's where the fun is.
Yeah. And then as well, when it comes to the more hardcore community, in the end, they can do it to themselves. They can give themselves restrictions that'll make the game harder. That is not your job.
I mean, if they're
do.
really hardcore communities, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So in the end, like, I don't think you have to deliver on this like insane E-tier GTFO type mission. I think people will just do it themselves.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Or play GTFO. Like.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's prep missions before you take on a bigger main heist. Would it be harder to just like skip as many prep missions as you could?
So I think your reference is probably like a heist game that would say, here's the mission, and then you have 10 optional things, and each optional thing is linked to a mission. That's a very classical way of thinking about this. So I think more about it as a story, where I'm like, I don't even know if this location exists.
Right.
First time I play it, I'm just like, oh, you have to find this dude. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you get like some locations where information about the dude might exist.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to go there.
Yeah.
And then each time you play this storyline, it might be in different locations.
Right.
So now, but I didn't find information about this dude, but I found out about some other thing that we could also do. So then, we should do that. But if we do that, then that's going to heighten the difficulty of these enemies, because they're part of the same security firm.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, like how, in what order and should we, and the option to do it is not necessarily there.
Okay, yeah, I have a burning question then.
Sure.
The focus is co-op.
Yeah.
It's always co-op,
Yeah.
but people are going to play it alone.
Yeah.
People won't always have people.
No.
So what can you expect if you try to play it solo?
So I think in the beginning it's probably more attuned to co-op, because that's our core audience, right? And then slowly expand to say, if you want to play this more single, then that becomes easier and easier as time passes. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Because if you look at like our core player group, and then you start to try to build like a pyramid of gamers, basically. How do we make this appeal for people? Sort of that cheeseburger I was talking about. How can I convert them to like having a co-op drug habit, basically?
Right.
That's my job, I feel, or my calling. So
He kind of misunderstood my question here. I should have said, can you play this game without other human beings? But he more understood it as, can you play this multiplayer game if you have no friends? And he essentially explained that their goal is to make playing with randoms not annoying, so that you could play it solo with other people.
So if you play, I guess, Left 4 Dead nowadays, you join the server and there's a dude just sprinting ahead.
Yeah.
And there's one dude like playing the mission, and you and some other noobs are doing whatever you're doing. But he's like some hardcore. What's wrong with that is, of course, there's no like gathering mechanics. There's nothing. There's no breaks for him. He doesn't need you.
Yeah.
He can do whatever if he's good enough. I think it's trying to create a game that actually can be played with randoms is one of the challenges we're going through. But it's going to be a gradual thing again.
Moral of the story is that if you are a heist enjoyer or a GTFO enjoyer, in 1 to 5 business years, there may be a game that checks your boxes. It can be wishlisted on Steam to follow its progress. And yeah, Sweden is a pretty cool place.